first inspection of this car, I couldn't see much rust at all. After buying it, I decided to take out the floor mats and found a lot of rust in the footwell areas. This required some much needed treatment, so I scraped away the old sound deadening, applied rust converter to the rust, and then sprayed it on top with a rust kill paint. After that, I decided to replace the factory sound deadening with some thin foam, and it was as good as new.
The long-awaited lift kit. I've been meaning to lift this thing for a while, and I've thought of some options, and I think I've found the most cost-effective lift kit for a HILUX. Being an older HILUX, the front is suspended by torsion bars. The thing I like about torsion bars is they're adjustable. So rather than forking out money to go buy suspension, upgraded struts for newer HILUXes or newer IFS four-wheel drives, you can basically just wind up the nuts and lift up the front end. As you can see, guys, there is not a lot of room. There's not a lot of room between the bump stop and the lower control arm, which means that if I'm going over any sort of bumps, I'm pretty much bottoming out. So not ideal. I'm hoping to get a lot more clearance between the bump stop and the lower control arm. For the front, I've got these ball joint spacers, which is a very common lift kit for these older HILUXes, being a torsion bar. They're super cheap, super just simple and easy to fit, and in my opinion, one of the best alternatives to lifting up your HILUX. For the rear, we've got extended shackles, which is pretty much the same principle, but just on the rear, and it's approximately double the height of the original shackles, which you'll see a bit later on. Alrighty, so just coming underneath, guys, to wind up the torsion bars slightly. You'll see here that this is the torsion bar, which goes all the way down to the front and connects to the upper control arm. And that's basically what is suspending the vehicle via the upper control arm. Now, pretty simple to tighten these up or loosen them, or in other words, lower or raise. It's just this nut here. And you basically just want to be counting how many turns you go. So it's a quarter turn. If you do 4 of those, that's a full rotation and so on. And you'll just see up here, the thread on top. You can also gauge how many threads, how many nice and clean threads have come up through the top to gauge both sides so that they're even. So I'm just going to wind this up a little bit more and we'll see how she looks.
Fast forward a few months and it was time to prepare the HILUX for Raptor coating. To do this properly, I took the tub off of the chassis. I apologise in advance for the lack of footage while Raptoring this car, but because it's such a mammoth job, I just wanted to smash it out and get it done as quickly as possible. Taking off the accessories, bogging, sanding, altogether preparing the HILUX for Raptor coating took about 3 days. So if you're going to do it yourself, prepare yourself for quite a job. I decided to go a dark grey in Raptor. The paint code is just here on the screen if you yourself want to go this same colour. For some reason though, it looks like a dark green in some light. So just prepare yourself for that. This is the finished product so far of the HILUX, but I'll go through a more detailed rundown of all the accessories. Guys, it's been a few months since the Raptor coating, so it's had a bit of use. It's a bit dusty, but that's what it's going to be. It's a farm ute, so never going to really be 100% clean. I did say I would go through some of the accessories I put on this car. So just quickly, starting off with the bull bar. If you come and have a look here, I've basically cut the side slightly on the bull bar just to give it more of a aesthetic look. It also makes it look like it has a better approach angle. As you saw on the other videos, I put these aftermarket LED lights in. Now, you saw at the start of the video a HILUX budget build. That's because this car has been done on a budget. Everything, well, most things were purchased from eBay. I've tried to keep the cost down as much as I can. So these aftermarket LED headlights weren't very expensive. The bull bar came with the car. I did Raptor coat it in black just to keep it from rusting, keeping it looking nice. These are just your King's 7-inch spotties, so they do the absolute job. Speaking of lights, on the top here, a bit interesting. I've sort of leaned more towards individual lights. Not only was it cheaper, once again being on a budget, but it's also nice to being able to tilt the lights in any direction you want. So if I want these outer lights to be tilted out more, I can point them outwards. Not only that, sometimes on LED light bars, some of the LEDs can deteriorate with time and eventually don't work. Whereas with these, if one of these goes out, I can just replace it individually. I think it's turned out to look really nice. It gives the car some character. While we're here on the side, guys, these massive mirrors. I guess you could say they're like a eBay clear view. So very, very cost effective as far as mirrors are concerned, and they're absolutely huge. Come have a look on the front. Much nicer. I don't have to guess when I'm looking back to change lanes. Originally on the SR HILUXes, they had these little tiny mirrors right here, and you couldn't see very much at all. So this is definitely a huge upgrade. For those of you wanting to know where I got these from, they're actually made for a GU Patrol off of eBay, but for some reason they do fit nicely in this triangle section here. As far as the Raptor coat goes, guys, I did 2 coats. The second coat was definitely a lot thicker. I think it's turned out alright, much better than previous jobs I've done. And if I haven't already mentioned, there used to be a canopy on this when it was white. I got rid of that completely. I did not like the look of the canopy, and I leaned more towards just a standard cover. It looks nicer, and in my opinion, it does keep the weight down a little bit too. So I basically opted for these elastic straps here. So if we take all these off, I kept the plastic liner in the tub. And as I mentioned in a previous video, I've still got the air compressor in there if I need to ever pump up my tires. On the other side now, guys, I have got this snorkel here. This is once again an eBay snorkel. Although it's cheap, it does the absolute job, keeps the dust semi out of the airbox. Speaking of airboxes, let me show you under the bonnet. Pretty much standard in here, guys, apart from this intake airbox piping and snorkel. So I've basically plumbed it through there. Once again, a cheap alternative for a snorkel. There's a pod filter inbuilt to this. Got your standard sensor there, alloy piping, and all your vacuum lines still connected into that pipe. Not only does it sound great, have a listen. But it also feels like it has a little bit more power. It gets up and goes just that little bit more. Thanks so much for watching, guys. That is all I have for you today with this HILUX build. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments. Any questions you may have about the build, what you want to do to your HILUXes, and I'll catch you next time.